Hey team, welcome to my channel. Today what we're going to do is I got a Q&A while I'm sitting here on a Saturday, drinking my energy drink, about to go train. But before I do that, I'm going to go through a Q&A. I've got a few questions here I've been asked over the last week and just cover what I've learned mentoring 300 plus trainers in my time. So if you're new here, my name's Drew and I coach PTs how to build their businesses, whether you're starting in the industry or you're experienced and looking at scaling. So if you're new, I'd appreciate a subscribe or a like and comment what you'd like to see moving forward. If you're a PT, where do you train at? I'd love to know. So let's get into it. So the first question I've got is, what's the one trait every successful trainer I've mentored has in common? Now, there is some level of hunger you need when you come into the industry, and you need to want it. If you come in sort of half-ass and you testing the waters, you definitely won't make it. So I've seen trainers that the ones that are successful are those that they come in, they know what they want, they know exactly where they want to be, and then they'll figure the rest out. So being proactive is definitely a trait you need if you want to be successful in the industry. Second question, what's the biggest mistake you see repeated across new trainers? The biggest mistake I've seen is a lot of trainers will go and get an employed job first and lose interest. So let me expand on this. So in the PT course, it's quite lucrative that the PT career is sold, well, not sold, but is defined as you'll have a good work-life balance, you'll be able to earn lots of money, etc., etc. Now, on the contrast, if you get an employed job, it doesn't work like that. You get a lower cut. You don't really have that work-life balance because you're working long hours to get more clients, but you don't have as much skin in the game. So I see a lot of trainers who come out hungry, but they want to go and start as an employed job to see if they like it, which is fair enough. But I feel like you're just better off jumping straight into the rental model in a commercial gym, in the right gym with a good mentor, and in most cases there's a build-up phase. You only really pay 3 months of full rent, then you can get out of the contract. So I find the risk isn't that great if you do just go into a rental model. Because when you break down the sessions you need to cover rent, it works out to be 3 or 4 sessions a week. And I've seen trainers get that in 1 week. So if you have any ambition, I would go all in on the rental model, and then that would be a good insight whether you like it or not. And worst case scenario, if you don't like it, in your 5th month, put your 4 weeks in. So that's one mistake I see repeated, is choosing the wrong path, you could say. Another is not constantly learning or upskilling. So especially in your first 6 months, you need to, you learn a good foundation in your Cert 3 and 4 in Australia, but you need to keep learning. You need to learn more about your craft. You need to nail your craft. You need to find mentors to learn off, because the cues is crucial. You're only as good as your client can understand you. So learning that side of things will help a lot. And also learning the business side. So even if you're employed, you still need to learn this. You need to learn a sales process. You need to learn a consultation process, how you're going to get your clients, how they're going to pay. Under an employed model, you learn all that and you do all that on behalf of the business. So it's very changeable. The skills, you learn the skills ultimately. It's just whether you're going to be employed or not, self-employed. But I would say you need to constantly upskill, especially in your first 6 to 12 months. When you finish your course, that's just the beginning. You need to learn personable skills, social skills, how to approach members, how to have good conversations, how to have meaningful conversations. There's heaps of things you need to learn. So trainers who come in and think they have all the skill sets and tools just because they have their Cert 4 is a pretty big mistake. Third question. Is there such thing as too late to start building a real PT business? It's never too late. The PT business, and one of the benefits of running your own PT business, is you can work as much or as little as you want. Now, there'll be a direct reflection of how much effort you put in towards your success output. So, I've had trainers who have started their PT business in their 50s, 60s, and they're absolutely crushing it. They just learnt and put boundaries and time blocks in place so they didn't burn out. It's never too late. It's never too late. There's a demographic, and the world we live in now, with wellness and longevity becoming a real prominent topic on social media. People care about their bodies and the longevity of where their body and wellness is going. So people these days are more aware of that. So the older demographic generally work well with like-minded people. So to summarize that is never too late. Never too late. And if you've been PTing for a while, and you already have the connections and networks, it's quite easy to transition. Question number 4. What separates a trainer who plateaus at 60K from one who breaks 150K? It's a good question. Without background knowledge, I would say that PT is never really a lead issue. There's always ways you can get lead. Whether you're being proactive and action that is another thing. But let's just say this trainer is proactively getting leads and they're getting good leads come through. It's a retention problem. So what you want to do is you got to implement a retention system. Trainers who get to that 150K, it isn't by luck. They don't lose clients. So you need to find a way to not lose clients. And that would be a retention system. So when I say retention system, it's going to be like, have you implemented monthly check-ins, like where you celebrate wins, build that relationship? Is there a downsell option? So if members, your clients are struggling to afford face-to-face sessions, do you have a downsell option or another option that can accommodate for them to still work with you? So, yeah, lots to break down in that question, but that's going to come back to retention. You can only sell so much on the front end. The business is keeping them. Next question. How long does it typically take a trainer to become profitable? Typical rent for PT is between $250 a week and $350. Systems these days and miscellaneous tools probably set you back $100 a month. So all in all, you're looking at just say 400 tops a week. Now, if you break that down, the average PT session costs anywhere from $80 to $100. So you only need 5. The risk is low. Where we get nervous or anxious is because rent's $250 or $350. We think, oh shit, that's a lot of money I'm tied into. But in reality, it's not that difficult to get there. So most of our PTs in our network will be profitable from week 2 after they get their first client, because the expenses don't really start up until weeks 8 to 12. So you essentially have that period of time to get as many clients as you want. And then by the time that your expenses kick in with the gym rent and even softwares, you're already in good nick. Most of our trainers will be at like 1,500 in profit a week after like month 4. All right. So that's some good instance and some good information for you guys if you are thinking about starting PT. Next question. What's a piece of advice you give that trainers usually resist at first? Talking to members on the gym floor. It is quite scary to do initially. And I remember when I first started, my mentor made me do it and I shat myself. So I understand where it's coming from, but the opportunity and the value and the potential you get a client from it far outweighs the uncomfortability. Because if you have 30 minutes free, I could go out on the gym floor, talk to 5 people, potentially book 1 or 2 in, and that 1 or 2 would potentially become a client that then would refer a client. So we're looking at like a lifetime value of like $1,000 minimum. So if I was like to you, I'll give you $1,000 just to go say hi, everyone would do it. So that's normally where I get resisted a lot on. Mainly because it's just scary. It's uncomfortable at first. It's outside our comfort zone. Yeah, so I just find it's your business. You got to take control. And we're in a relationship business where the more connections and people you know and people you can make good engagements with, the more revenue business essentially is going to have. What's the fastest turnaround you've seen in a trainer's business? So I posted this on my Instagram recently. We had a trainer who was starting, and I had worked with him a little bit to get their business up and running prior to their commencement in the gym. When they hit the ground running in the gym, it took them 3 weeks to be fully booked. Now, I would love to take all the credit, but I set goals and essentially all they did was 10x the output. So when we spoke about members, engaging with members on the floor, for instance, I said talk to 5 people a day. They spoke to 50 people a day. They spent 10 hours in the gym a day. They just did volume and a lot of it. And that way they were able to generate X amount of leads. And because we did consult training and conversion training before they had hit the ground running in the gym, there was no learning period. It was they straight off converting that 70%, 80%. So they're maximizing every client that came in from the get-go, which, yeah, they were able to have a fully booked business, which was around $2,000 a week, and rent hadn't even started. So that's a good testimonial we had there. What's something almost every struggling trainer has in common? They took the foot off the gas. When you are doing well, you do get complacent. You're like, oh yeah, cool. Like we're doing well. I've got all these clients. We're in a good rut. Then you don't have a pipeline because you stopped focusing on lead gen. This is common in the first 6 months of your PT career. So you get complacent, and then all of a sudden you have all these requests coming in about clients either moving away, can't afford it, cancelling, etc. And you look to your pipeline and you have nothing. So then you have to build that whole pipeline again, which might take a couple of weeks. And then we're back up. So it's getting complacent is a big one I have found. And it can be demotivating, but in your first 6 months, I would say 12 months, if you want to be cautious, is keep that pipeline active. Even if you create a waiting list or anything really, just keep it active, because you don't know when a downturn might happen. And if you have a waiting list that you can go directly to and you've been nurturing, you're golden and your business is essentially bulletproof. How do you spot which trainers will actually follow through on advice? Fantastic question. Now, I've mentored lots and lots of trainers, and I can pick it up. I can pick up the questions that have been asked to me, that they're going to actually go and action it. But ultimately, like, it is the trainer's business at the end of the day, and trainers that come on are quite, I do due diligence to make sure they actually want it, because I can tell you everything under the sun, give you all the hacks, how to get a client in 10 minutes, etc. Right? But if you don't want it and you're not going to go action it, then what's the point? So in the one-to-ones I have and the check-ins and the catch-up, it's the questions I'm getting asked. If I'm getting lots of questions, I know they're going to go out and crush it. If I've got to ask you to ask me questions, then look, you probably don't want it as much. If you could only give one trainer one piece of advice, what would it be? Get a mentor, first of all. They've been there, done that. They've been there, they've done that. You're going to learn a lot. You'll be able to fast track your business. You'll be able to learn what they did and not make the mistakes that they did. And that will set you up really, really well just to start in the industry, and then just constantly learn. Like, never stop learning. There's new things happening all the time. Like, with AI coming in, like, everyone's had to adapt to learn that. You just got to keep learning. If there's a skill set you feel deficient in, what I used to do was go home and learn as much as I can about that. And little small things like that will just compound, and then you'll be able to have a well-rounded skill set. Because as a trainer, especially if you start your own business, is you wear many hats. So you got to maximize and get your knowledge at least to a sound level of all the hats. Awesome. That was our last question. I'm going to be doing one of these a week, because I get many questions in our one-on-ones that I feel would be very valuable to the wider audience of PTs, from someone who's mentored over 300 trainers nationally wide in Australia.